Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Duncan Alney here. Hello, hello, hello. I am the co-host. Actually, I'm the host of the Firebelly Social Show, where I talk with leading entrepreneurs and CEOs and founders of mission-driven food and beverage brands. It's an amazing journey. I've got so many great guests on the show over the last few months. And we've got a very special guest, Dr. Jeremy Weisz here of Rise 25, who has done, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands of interviews with successful entrepreneurs and CEOs and founders. And today, everybody, we are flipping the script, and he will be interviewing me.
Duncan, I'm excited about this episode because this is a year in review episode. We get to hear the lessons you've learned, some of the stories from your journey and some of the guests you've had on. And if you are watching the video, you can see the page. It's firebellymarketing.com/podcast. And we're going to be going through some of the episodes over this past year and what you learned. And before we do, I just want to say this episode is brought to you by Firebelly. And at Firebelly, they make brands more likable and profitable through social media marketing. They provide organic and paid social strategies. And the key, Duncan, is a strategy. You really employ a foundational strategy. It's not just tactical, and you do a lot of different things. I know you were named one of the top 10 social media agencies in the world by Clutch. And you've worked with companies like Netflix, Qdoba, Fiji Water, and many others to transform their social media strategy. So if you have questions about it, go to firebellymarketing.com. You can contact and email them at hello@firebellymarketing.com to learn more. Duncan, who's the first guest we should talk about and the lesson learned?
Jeremy, it's been a great year, and I want to start with someone local that I've had the pleasure of meeting in person several times. A entrepreneur, an amazing woman, Rachel Klein, who's running a national business. And it's just amazing what she's been able to do. And so
it's almond butter?
It's almond butter.
I love almond butter.
And my man, that's all she does is almond butter.
I have to check it out.
It's so cool. And Revival Foods is the name of her company, and Revival Food Company. And, it's so interesting because I learned about how she sources almonds, and she calls them happy almonds because of the way they are cultivated and grown, and how she got her relationship going with a special farmer out in California, and how she's used social media to grow her brand. And it's really interesting because Rachel really put something on my radar, which is, the challenges that women CEOs face. Everything from, more difficulty in accessing funding and just challenges that you wouldn't expect them to have. And certainly, something that I've experienced with my wife as well with her business, Airtan, as she is a CEO as well. So really
let's give a shout out to your wife. What's your wife's business?
My wife's business is Airtan, and her name is Angela Alney. So she's so it's really great to talk to Rachel. And then, of course,
we'll look into the next one right now, Duncan, but I just want to make a comment. I listen to your podcast just because I like to discover cool new products that I want to try. So I appreciate you having, not just brands on, but you do have a lot of mission-based brands. And, we always love supporting the brands, not only because they're delicious and good with their food product or beverage, but because they have a mission behind it. So this is one I was hoping you were going to choose. This is one of the ones in the year in review because this is one of my favorite people and products. So,
I mean, Daniel Kurzrock is just a phenomenal dude. I mean, he is, the founder of the Upcycled Food Association. But I think what's really interesting to me is how he was, a home brewer and was appalled at how, the quantity of hops that have to be thrown away, and he figured out how to use those kind of byproducts to make new products. And so it's he calls it the circular food economy and the Upcycled Food Association. I had no clue whatsoever that this was even a thing, and he's just a brilliant, happy guy. And he shared some great advice for other people. And I also learned about equity crowdfunding, which is such an amazing alternative to, the traditional funding that's out there in the market, that people have access to.
Yeah.
I think that he's just got a great energy to him. And I think it's an episode that, was really, really amazing. And, it just shows the value of innovation. And this seems to be a theme, I think, with a lot of the founders that I've talked to is, living creatively and innovatively, not giving up, instead of trying to jump over barriers, going around them, or just choosing a different journey. And so, kudos to Daniel for being not only a great guest, but really producing some amazing quality snacks. And gosh, he's teaching, breweries all over the country on how to develop different revenue streams. So just a really great.
Regrained, his bars are really good. I've tried them, and it is amazing that it's like the waste product. It made me think of with this episode with Regrain that the waste product of other companies is an opportunity for other people, right? And so I think charcoal came out of that. Charcoal was a waste product. Sawdust was a waste product, and it turned into a huge, huge industry. So what is waste products out there that you can, this episode made me think of that. What are opportunities out there that someone's just literally tossing in the trash?
And you made such an amazing point, kind of like the Intel Inside point. Would you rather have one product, that dominates, 0.5% of the market, or would you rather have, be inside everyone else's products, that dominate 40% of the market? So just a really interesting approach to going to market and winning share through valuable partnerships.
Awesome. So who's the next guest? Lesson learned.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've got another guest. I don't know if I pulled him up here or not, but Rusty Jones. And Rusty Jones, from Hello Water, just kind of inspired me with this cleaning up the aisle approach, and that ended up being the theme of our of the interview with Bake Believe and Dan Morovits, who runs marketing over at Bake Believe. And Bake Believe is a really cool. It's a sugar-free chocolate. It's a high-quality chocolate, and really sort of catering to that keto lifestyle and people that are watching their sugar and still want a uncompromising product. And I think one of the problems with the sugar-free chocolate or stevia-based chocolate is the aftertaste that you get, and these guys have really solved that, and so you don't get that peculiar aftertaste when you eat that chocolate. I mean, they're a client of ours and work with Lauren Johnson, our badass executive director, and this is just a really great episode. Talking about the fusion of social into traditional, and what a big role social plays, and getting people excited with giving away their own product and working with influencers. And what I really like about it is the fact that it's such a scalable program that we work with these guys on, and it's not huge budgets, and that you can really get great results. And of course, Dan also shared the value of a human's best friend in a dog, and he talked about his dog, and that was really made for a great episode.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, refined sugar has so many bad things associated with it. So when you could decrease the sugar intake, I'm all for that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Who's the next one?
Absolutely. I really was so honored to interview my friend Jason Falls, who has another new book out this year. He's just a all-round great guy, great digital leader, and has become known for his candor as well as his bourbon expertise. But now he's conquered the next area, which is such a great sense of timing. With the problem with a lot of influencer programs is they don't actually result in any outcome. And so he talks in his book and on an interview about the value of building relationships where the brand wins, the influencer wins, and the influencer's audience wins. So it's like a triple win. And Winfluence is a great book. And he's also getting into the podcast space now, and he's doing some interesting things with his friends in the marketing space and podcasting and just talks. So I really resonated with him because one of the things we do at Firebelly, is to really audit influencers and to make sure that they are right for the brands that we partner them up. So definitely a relevant topic.
What kind of stuff do you do with influencers for your clients?
So, we work with micro influencers and even sometimes we call tiny influencers. And so anyone can be an influencer. The question is, what outcome are they influencing? You're doing it because you want to get access to their audience, right? And so as opposed to a new audience, you're getting access to their audience. And since they have domain expertise and credibility and they've built up their trust, it's a great way to really get access to a warm audience. And so we work with the influencers to put our clients' products, in an authentic way in front of these audiences, and then, either awareness, engagement, or get them to go buy something.
So an example would be like if Bake Believe wanted more moms baking, you'd find some mom influencer with a Facebook group or Instagram following or something like that, and make sure that they were aligned, and then have them kind of partner on certain things. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times I think, where we have really won some mileage is by letting the influencer do what they want to do, and say, what you're doing. How can we make this journey better for you? And we've done some little hacks where, we'll give influencers budgets to promote their campaigns, whereas they'd be doing it on their own steam in the past. And, really,
so it helps them too. It helps the brand, but it helps them gain, put some money behind what they're doing.
And it's always a win for everyone. And really, like, as I was saying with Jason Paul, why I love that book so much is that we've been practicing that for years, which is great win-win relationships with influencers and brands.
What do you consider, Duncan, when you say micro influencer, numbers wise? I don't know if you want to give a platform like Instagram or whatever, but, because it's all relative, right? There's people out there with hundreds of millions. There's tens of millions, hundreds of thousands. When you think micro influencer, what are you thinking as far as numbers wise that you're looking at?
I mean, so, you've got the influencers, with millions and millions of followers, and then you get drilling down to see how many engaged and how many are real, and what actions can they produce. It's typically, millions, and even hundreds of thousands are sort of like the macro influencers. And you're talking about micro influencers, at least the way I and we define it, it's typically sub 100,000.
Got it.
Even like sub 50,000 followers, but you're looking for an audience that's typically got a higher level of engagement. They may be more likely to do what the influencer is asking them to do. And we're also looking for veracities. We're trying to understand who these people are, what their geography is, and other data about them.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense. I just want to get a sense of what we were talking about numbers wise, because I know you deal with a lot of really big brands and then other brands. So
the tiny influencers, could be like a couple thousand. It's like there's gold in those value in those spaces as well. Because at the end of the day, totally. If you have a 50% engagement from 2,000 people, that's 1,000 people. Or if someone who has 100,000 followers has 1%, that's 1,000 people. So I mean, it's just the math all plays out the same way at the end of the day.
I've had people I've talked to who have gone on Good Morning America for their book, and they sold more books on a niche podcast about that topic with a few thousand, listeners. They sold more books than Good Morning America than when they were featured. Now, social proof wise, Good Morning America is obviously going to blow them out of the water, but they actually selling more books, like you're saying, was that niche podcast they wanted that had a couple thousand listeners. So exactly what you're saying. So who is the next guest?
The next guest actually is the only guest that has been on twice so far, although we've had some great guests and would love to feature them again. But Christina Appleton. And we work with Christina Appleton. She does some amazing work with one of our clients, Karma Nuts, and they've experienced great success, taking they only they only produce cashews. And, I would propose that Ganesh and I are the founder there, who's from Kerala, arguably the most beautiful state in India, and also the highest producer of cashews. One of the highest producers of cashews in the world is, already the cashew king. But if he doesn't think he's well on his way. And so Christina, and Ganesh have done some great work to bring Karma Nuts to the academies and to all kinds of really amazing consumer outlets, Whole Foods, and they've got some really cool flavors and a very market driven and very heavily reliant on social. And so I was so impressed with, her work that I started talking to her about what else she is doing. And she has another company as well, Appleton Consulting, and just really comes from a background of innovation and, kind of the grocery and produce business. And she was really frustrated by not being able to find kind of clean breakfast food that was ready to go. And so she invented this Power Veggie Bite. It's got egg and high levels of protein, and you pop it in the microwave for a minute, and it's just a very healthy, quick breakfast that's filling and
delicious.
And she has also, in addition to that, the Power Bites, but she has a Better Box, and I don't remember what it was, but it was like $25 or something like that. And we ordered several of them, and the bang for the buck was phenomenal. It was just kombuchas and all kinds of.
That sounds great. Stuff. Is it a subscription, like a monthly subscription? Or,
I don't know if
it was a one-time
thing, but it was really. I only said kombucha because I know you love kombucha.
You like sparked me at the kombucha. Yeah.
And there, I think there was like almost $100 worth of value in that little box, and it was phenomenal. But the thing, she was the one that then continued, the challenges that entrepreneurs who are women face. And I had no clue the hashtag founder life was even a thing, and where, founders talk about the challenges of being a founder. I mean, you're a founder, John's a founder, your partner, and there are things that founders go through that, being an employee or being a leader even don't go through. It's like, these are peculiar or particular to being a founder, where you're the visionary, but you've also begun this journey. And then what happens to your role and how do you scale and all those kinds of things. That's just really awesome. And then we actually even talked about what she loves to eat. But so Christina put all that on my radar.
Nice. I love it. Who's next?
Yeah, so Steve Hershberger is an interesting guy. We've been friends, and he's a serial entrepreneur, and he's been a serial client for us. And he's early pioneer in the word of mouth and social media space, and then founded a brewery, sold a brewery, started a beer tech company or a beverage tech company, and then is now doing some really cutting edge work around data and looking at deep flavor analysis and layering all kinds of demographic and geographic and behavioral data on top of that to make interesting, product recommendations and pairings and even product design and development ideas. So really fascinating stuff that he's doing. And he's got a great spirit of adventure. He's one of the only 50-year-old guys that I know that's competitively racing his bike. And of course, he's also friends with one of the people we'll be talking about in a minute, Diana Frick, our common friend and podcaster. And so they've done some work together in the chocolate space as well. And so we're also talking about, it's funny about Chick-Fil-A and the brand legacy they have and how, Chick-Fil-A is so hardcore about training and so hardcore about taking care of their employees and compensation and, also how to tell social media, to tell great stories, which is something that we've seen in almost all of these. So, how the value of you're telling great stories. I mean, I know you introduced me to Danny Schumann, the great copywriter, probably, well known by some for his work with Michael Jordan, and him saying that, the problem is with copy these days is that we're living in a world dominated by visual, by the visual. And so, don't underestimate the value of text, because text can really, instead of trying to process 1,000 words, why not process 7? Right. So, So
Danny has some cool stories. People just listen to the episode with you and him. That he started working with Gatorade. I don't know if it's the same day or week that Michael Jordan was. So he worked very closely with Gatorade and Michael Jordan. He has some cool stories.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to hear some of those stories and how the competitive nature of Michael Jordan permeated down to even pool. After shooting a commercial, they rented out a bar and they were playing pool, and how Jordan was basically like so competitive with this game and just wanted to take everybody on, and just living that channeling of his dark energy into competition. So just really fascinating to hear about some of that stuff.
Nice. Who's next?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I came across Jessica Hershfield through a guy that was in the wine business, and Chris Lavelia, who's now in the social kind of proof business, but she's an entrepreneur and the founder of Just Enough Wines. And so here's another amazing entrepreneur who's doing something really innovative. And, she's just, I think, a great example of how innovation is playing through in life, and, how they're doing really interesting things with wine. So the whole concept, you don't have to drink, a ton of wine. They're going to sell you wine that's just enough. So you don't have to feel pressure to finish the bottle or do anything. Just enough.
Exactly.
So if you're a heavy consumer, you might need three of them to be just enough. Or if you're maybe a light consumer, you'd need one. But it's just fascinating. Nice. And it also reminded me of Aimy Steadman, right? With Beatbox.
Right.
I love with that one, how Aimy is just such a futurist and trying to understand where beverage consumption is going, and, predicting that and being sort of ready when those trends emerge into reality. And, they predicted that people were going to be tired of, poor tasting beverages and uninspired packaging. And, they really they've taken the concept of music and beatboxes and really embedded that in their product. And then even their marketing is all around music and music events. So really super cool.
Yeah. And they were on Shark Tank. So they have a cool story. I think Mark Cuban invested in them.
Yeah. And I think that, it's definitely been a theme that there's been some great entrepreneurs who are women on the show. And here's one of my favorites, growing a beverage brand, with Sid Sheth, and he is just a phenomenal dude. His story is so fascinating to me because it's about really seeing beyond what normal, limiting beliefs are. And so he was living in the Northeast and used to go to a gym that was next door to an amazing cidery. And he was like, well, I want to produce these this level or higher quality ciders and sell them in India, which is basically a market that had no cider at the time. And so he is taking these amazing apples and, producing concentrate here in the US, shipping them to India. They're being brewed and, prepared and packaged in India. Mm-hmm. And he entered the largest market in India, which is Mumbai, and they're dominating and they won all kinds of awards, expanding. But just, talking about how you can grow a beverage brand that's even sourced all over the place, right? And so we're just adding value. And so just really interesting how he and his wife, Nupur, who, when he met, one of the first things they talked about on their first date in a Starbucks in India was what her experience with branding was and what she thought this passion of
his. It's a different kind of first date.
Yeah. Very strategic.
That's good.
So that's been fun to see how these are doing. And another one I enjoyed was Brandon Hall, and I enjoyed the interview with Brandon Hall, one of the founders of One Hope Wine. These guys are all out of college, decide to cash all their credit cards out and just go in to create a wine company with one major difference. They didn't want to do good things after the fact. They wanted to do good things while they were doing everything else that they were doing. One of the things I loved about it was they were nominated for a Shorty Award, just like our company Firebelly. And, a funny story about how he got into the Playboy Mansion by just acting like he was delivering wine to a party. He put the case of wine on his shoulder and they
giving people ideas of how to get in there. That makes sense.
Yeah. But what was phenomenal is the fact that social impact is baked into the entire venture. And so everything from how they sell, it's multi-level sales. I mean, you can buy direct to, but it's multi-level sales and just a great mission-driven brand that has, if you look at their website, everything from dogs to veterans to the economy to, developing nations. They've done so many amazing things. So really love that one. I've somehow didn't bring Rusty Jones up, so I'll just say a couple more things about Rusty Jones. What I loved about the interview with Rusty Jones was with Hello Water, is he basically said, we're cleaning up. He's the one that coined that phrase in my book. We're cleaning up the beverage aisle at the grocery store because there's no sugar, it's super healthy, and kids, can enjoy beverage, water beverage, and also get some fiber in their diet. So, and they do some super cool things where they sponsor drivers on different racing teams to get to their audience. And anyway, so Diana Frick, who we mentioned earlier, just a really powerful voice. And I think what I loved about this one was her powerful vision and energy to only featuring powerful women on the Gooder podcast. And I know that, you all work together on this, and it's just a fantastic venture. And we talked about the value of, or the significance of adding value to the consumer and how your social media strategy can really reflect those kinds of values. And they've done a ton of work. Of course, Retail Voodoo is a very, very respected name in the brand space and brand strategy. And they've done some amazing work there. But it's interesting because that was where I really personally found some great inspiration in my own work in connecting and using music to connect people with brands, and how you can build a world around a brand, with music. And so how playlists and, I would say extending the values of your brand into music. Really cool.
Amazing. Duncan, I appreciate you sharing this. I think we have one last one to share.
We have one last one. I saved this one for last because maybe this is the most personal for me. And so Asma Khan is at this point I'll say she's a global icon. And I went to school with her in Calcutta, and just an amazing conversation. And probably we need to do a better job of promoting this episode, because Asma actually said that was one of the most personal conversations she's had in a public forum, because she's all over, right? She gets multiple media mentions every week, but she said it was one of the most, because we're both from Calcutta, we went to the same school, our families are friends, and of course what she's known for is going from attorney, Cambridge educated attorney, to wanting to make a difference with food and doing a pop-up dinner clubs, and then starting a restaurant, and the restaurant blowing up, and simultaneously getting on Chef's Table, first British chef on Netflix show Chef's Table, and her book Asma Khan's Kitchen, which is a fixture in our own kitchen, and I cook from on a regular basis. And what I loved about that, since I've kind of built her up, and she has so many other things she's doing, another book coming out and so on. But she really talked about how, food connects us in such a huge way, and how she is using food as a tremendous channel and way to build social change, and so I loved her points about don't separate the food from the story behind the food, and so don't go to an Indian restaurant and assume that everything is curry. This is my own kind of like opinion around it. But, understanding where the food has come from and, if it's a family story. And obviously, there's good Indian food and, not so good Indian food. What we're talking about, this is a whole different level of storytelling and bringing culture, and listen, London is probably, I'll probably get some hell for saying this, maybe the most interesting place for Indian food in many ways in the world. And even in that environment, her food stands out significantly. And she uses, women who have no formal training and just really, I think, calling out male toxicity in kitchens. And so, yeah, she's obviously a founder, and, the way she distributed during the pandemic and like, developing a distribution model. So it just really, I think for me was maybe the most inspiring episode we've done, in the last period.
Duncan, thank you for your year in review. I want to encourage people to go to firebellymarketing.com if you have questions. Firebellymarketing.com/podcast to check out all the podcast episodes we talked about and more. If you go on the site, you can watch the video, you can listen to the audio on any of the podcast channels, but on their website. And just thanks for doing what you do and inspiring others, Duncan.
Thank you, Jeremy and Dr. Jeremy, for doing what you do and inspiring us. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you on the flip side.
That's right.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.